Hello dear students of second secondary stage. Let's resume our play Pygmalion. In this session we will deal with Act 3. Act 3 is going to take place in a different setting. We saw Act 1 in Covent Garden, Act 2 in Professor Higgins' house, especially laboratory. Here the setting will be in Mrs. Higgins' house. Mrs. Higgins is Professor Higgins' mother, and actually Professor Higgins decided to pay his mother a visit. He decided to visit her on her at-home day. What do we call by at-home day? It's the day when she receives her guests. Actually, Mrs. Higgins, the mother, does not welcome the coming of her son so much because she usually complains about his manners. Again, you see, whenever someone deals with Professor Higgins, he complains about his manners. He lacks them, although he belongs to the upper class. So his mother is complaining because she started to be worried. He visited her on her home day, fine, and she's expecting some guests, so she expects that he will embarrass her in front of her guests because he is not decent enough and he is not genteel with people. So, what was the reason for Professor Higgins' visit to his mother? Actually, he told his mother that he wanted to invite a girl, or actually he had invited a girl to come to his house, to her house. What is that girl? She is a girl that he picked up. It means he simply got from the street, and he taught her or gave her some lessons, and he wanted the girl to make her first performance in front of his mother. You see, so it was Eliza that he invited, and he wanted Eliza to make like a kind of performance in front of Mrs. Higgins in order to decide if Eliza presentable or not yet. Fine. Of course, the mother was very surprised. How come that you just picked a girl like this? He wanted the mother to take care of what the girl pronounces and how she is pronouncing these words. Then, it was, as we said, the at-home day of Mrs. Higgins, and she is expecting some guests. The guests started to arrive. The first people who arrived as her guests were the Insfords. Yes, the Insfords that we had met in Act 1. Mrs. Insford, the mother, and Miss Insford, Clara, the girl or the daughter. Fine. They are friends of Mrs. Higgins and they are now her guests. After that, Professor Higgins actually recognized the Miss and the Mrs. Insford, not because he knew them or he remembers their features or their faces. No, if you remember, his interest in accent that made him able to realize them or recognize them. He recognized them through their accents, okay? But he was not sure where exactly he had met them. Then, Colonel Pickering, of course, as the one who is the sponsor for the experiment or the whole experiment, must be there. So he also joined in Mrs. Higgins' house. Later on, Freddie, the son of Mrs. Insford and the brother of Clara, had arrived. So they all gathered at Mrs. Higgins' house. Of course, the Professor Higgins was now happier because Eliza is going to make her performance in front of more audience. And as we said, he is very proud of his creation. Now, Miss Doolittle is announced. Eliza has arrived to Mrs. Higgins' house. Eliza, that we saw her in Act 1, as the poor flower girl who was totally dirty, full of dust, full of things that were not clean at all, even her teeth, her hair, etc. And then she tried to make herself cleaner in Act 2 when she came asking for the lessons at Professor Higgins' house. Now she was well dressed. She was full of grace. Okay, she was very gracefully acting or behaving in front of those people, and she was full of self-confidence. Once she arrived in that beautiful dress that she was dressed, and the perfect words or the perfect way of speaking that she used, she started to greet everybody with, "How do you do?" Actually, Professor Higgins had assigned only 2 topics for Eliza to speak about. He warned her not to speak about anything except the weather and health. Just simple topics to break the ice with anyone that you don't know. He warned her not to get too much talk with anyone. Eliza actually started to talk to people using some perfect way of talking, etc. And she was performing well and okay, till she came to the talking of, or the story of her aunt's death. She exaggerated in talking about the weather sometimes, but it passed. And then moving to talk about the health, she mentioned the death of her aunt. Actually, talking about the death or something like this, or a very depressing action like this, is not something proper to speak to people that you don't know for the first time. So Eliza started to make a mistake. What was that mistake? Not only talking about her aunt's death, but also she started to use some slang terms that were improper for a lady. Okay? Of course, Professor Higgins, caring about the thing that he had created, wanted to cover her mistake. What did he say? How did he justify Eliza's mistake? He said that this is just the new small talk. You know that every generation has a kind of informal and casual way of talking. He said that Eliza is adapting this new small talk. Fine. He didn't confess that this is a mistake. Then Professor Higgins signed for Eliza the time in order to leave. This is enough. And Eliza started to leave. And of course, everyone noticed that Freddie was attracted to the beautiful girl that was there. After Eliza had left, of course, Professor Higgins started to know the impressions of the people about Eliza. First of all, Mrs. Ainsford didn't pass the mistake of making or saying some bad terms or slang terms. Then Eliza actually used these words. So Clara also, in order to see that she is fashionable one and she's up to date, she said that she can try such one. The Ainsfords had left, and now Professor Higgins wanted to know the impression about Eliza, especially his mother's opinion. His mother simply answered him that Eliza is only, okay, the art or the achievement of her dressmaker and his art, which is phonetics. But she is not presentable yet. What does it mean? In everything she says, she simply shows, or she has that spirit of being a girl from the poor class or the low class. So she is not presentable yet. Then Mrs. Higgins actually started to throw some questions at Professor Higgins and Colonel Pickering. What were they? She asked about Eliza's future. Simply, she asked them, what is to be done with Eliza after you have finished your experiment like this? What will come out of Eliza? Eliza will be taught as a lady, but she still will not be provided by a good position in society or even a job that will make her live the life of a lady. So you will give her a kind of education that will make her not qualified enough to the level or to the class that she is already belonging to. So before thinking about educating Eliza like this, you have to think about her future. As we said before, that Higgins is a man of no emotions. He doesn't deal with Eliza as a person who has feelings, who has future, who has a character, who has ambition, nothing like this. He just deals with her as material or as subject to his study and to his experiment. So he didn't bother himself thinking about what will happen to Eliza. As we said before, he can simply throw her away back to the gutter or to where she belonged. He doesn't care. But here, Mrs. Higgins is warning him just like Mrs. Pierce had warned them before. But Higgins, in order to calm down his mother, he told her, we can make sure that she can have a good job after we finish the experiment. But actually Mrs. Higgins felt that both Colonel Pickering and Professor Higgins dealing with Eliza as if she is a doll. She started to make fun of the way that she is getting her lessons, about how she repeats them like a parrot, how she is sometimes a quick learner when she is having some music lessons, etc. As if they are having a doll or something that they are playing with, not considering Eliza as a human being. So Mrs. Higgins felt that talking to them will not be very beneficial or will not be very useful. So they left and she kept saying, men, men. If we are going to conclude the whole themes that had been discussed in Act 3 as well as the previous acts, we have some important themes that have been highlighted all through the play. First of all, the theme of class distinction or the theme of classism. As you see, it's the transformation of Eliza from being a poor flower girl into a lady or a duchess in an ambassador's garden party. And we saw different situations between different classes where the poor were not accepted by the upper. Then, the theme of gentility and manners. Gentility and manners were actually represented by a very gentleman all the time, from Act 1 until now, who is Colonel Pickering. Colonel Pickering always treated Eliza gently with very high manners or very good manners, as if she is a lady, even when she is a poor flower girl. From day one, he is calling her Miss Doolittle, he is gentle to her. On the other hand, the one who lacks gentility and manners was always Professor Higgins. From the very first act, when he told her, you don't deserve to live with such an accent, to Act 2, when he treated her like something that he found and he started to own, and he bullied her. And even now in Act 3, he is making her like a kind of thing that he is showing to others, and she is making a performance according to his orders. Finally, the main important theme that the whole story or the whole plot or the whole play is rotating around, which is change and transformation. In Act 3, it was very highlighted when Eliza showed her beginning of a change and transformation when she acted like a lady. This is the end of Act 3. Thank you, my dears.